I didn't scream when I found out. I didn't throw the letter across the room. I didn't call my son. I didn't even cry. I just stood there in my kitchen, staring at a number that could erase my entire life. $480,000. That was the price of my trust. The price of raising a son alone. The price of believing that love protects you from betrayal. The price of thinking family would never use your name as collateral. What hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the signature. Because it looked exactly like mine. And if I didn't fight it, I would lose everything. But if I did fight it, I might lose my son. That was the morning I had to choose between protecting my child or protecting myself. And at 62 years old, I learned that sometimes those two things are no longer the same. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Sara Whitmore, and I am 62 years old. At 62, you think you've already survived the worst betrayals life has to offer. You think the nights of crying quietly into your pillow are behind you. You think the sacrifices you made have earned you at least one thing in return, peace. You believe that if your heart is ever broken again, it will be by fate or illness or time. You never imagine it will be broken by your own child's signature. The morning I discovered that my daughter-in-law had taken out a $480,000 loan in my name and used it to purchase a luxury home, I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, watching sunlight spill across the tiles I scrubbed myself for decades. I remember thinking how peaceful it looked. How safe. Then I opened the envelope, and everything I believed about safety shattered. The life I built from nothing. I was 35 when I became a widow. 35 with an 8-year-old boy and a mortgage that felt like a mountain pressing down on my chest. My husband Thomas had been careful, responsible, the kind of man who checked the locks twice and kissed me before leaving for work every morning. And then one rainy evening, he didn't come home. A car accident. 3 words that rearranged my entire future. I didn't have time to collapse. Daniel needed school lunches packed, shoes bought, homework checked. I worked mornings at a bakery and evenings doing bookkeeping for a construction company. I learned how to stretch a dollar so thin it almost became transparent. I sold my jewelry. I postponed dental work. I said no to vacations. Not because I loved suffering, but because I loved my son more than comfort. Daniel grew up watching me work. He would sit at the kitchen table while I balanced spreadsheets, his small voice breaking the silence. "When I grow up, Mom," he would say, "I'll buy you a big house with stairs and a balcony." I would smile and brush his hair away from his forehead. "You don't owe me anything," I'd tell him. I meant it. Or at least I thought I did. The girl with expensive dreams. Daniel met Ava when he was 28. She was beautiful in the way magazine covers are beautiful, polished, curated, intentional. She had long dark hair, flawless makeup, and the kind of confidence that filled a room before she did. She talked about branding, upgrading, manifesting abundance. I didn't understand half of it, but I wanted to like her. At our first dinner together, she looked around my modest dining room, the same oak table Daniel had done homework on, and said lightly, "Oh, this has a very vintage charm." Vintage. I smiled anyway. When they married, I gave them $15,000 from my savings. It had taken me years to put aside that money. I told myself it was a gift of love. Ava hugged me tightly that day. "Don't worry," she whispered, "we'll take care of you one day." I didn't know promises could expire. The house I wasn't invited to. About 2 years into their marriage, Ava started posting pictures online. Marble countertops. A sweeping staircase. A backyard pool that shimmered like a mirror under the sun. "Our new blessing," she captioned one photo. Daniel told me they had invested in property, a smart financial move. He said I'd see it once they finished renovating. Weeks turned into months. No invitation came. I felt the sting, but I swallowed it. Children grow up, lives expand, mothers step back. That's what I told myself. The envelope. The envelope arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Thick. Official. Unforgiving. Final notice before legal action. At first I thought it was junk mail. Then I saw my full legal name printed in bold. Sara Whitmore. My fingers trembled as I read. Mortgage loans. $480,000. Delinquent payments. Late fees accumulating. Legal proceedings pending. The property address listed was the same one from Ava's photos. My breath stopped. I sat down slowly, as if the floor had tilted beneath me. There had to be a mistake. I had no mortgage. My home was paid off years ago. I had never co-signed anything, never authorized anything. Then I turned the page. There it was. My signature. Perfect. Identical. Forged. The confrontation that changed everything. I drove to Daniel's apartment in a haze. Ava answered the door wearing silk loungewear and an expression that said I had interrupted something more important. Oh, hi, Sara. Not Mom. Sara. Daniel appeared behind her. What's wrong? I handed him the letter. His face shifted just slightly. Not confusion. Recognition. Ava crossed her arms. It's not what you think, she said quickly. What do I think? I asked, my voice barely steady. Daniel sighed. Mom, just calm down. Calm down. The two most dismissive words in the English language. You used my name, I whispered. It was temporary, Ava snapped. Your credit is excellent, you weren't using it. I stared at her. $480,000 is not temporary. Daniel stepped forward. We were going to refinance. I just needed time to build my income records. And if something went wrong, I asked. Silence. That silence answered everything. If something went wrong, I would pay. Not them. Me. The choice that tore me apart. The bank confirmed it. Digital applications. Forged documents. Identity theft. The loan officer looked at me gently and asked, Do you want to file a fraud report? I felt physically ill. To report them meant legal consequences. To stay silent meant financial ruin. I went home and sat in my living room for hours. I looked at framed photos, Daniel's first day of school, Daniel at graduation, Daniel on his wedding day. Where had I lost him? Or had I simply refused to see who he was becoming? That night I didn't sleep. By morning I had made my decision. Yes, I told the bank, file the report. My voice shook. But it did not break. The fallout. Ava called screaming. You're destroying our future. No, I said calmly, you destroyed mine. Daniel came later, furious. You could have handled this privately. Privately, I repeated, with debt collectors calling, with my house at risk. It's just money. No, I said, tears finally spilling over, it's betrayal. That word hung between us like smoke. Court and consequences. The investigation moved quickly. Email trails. IP addresses. Mortgage broker testimonies. Ava had orchestrated most of it. Daniel had signed willingly. In court, Ava looked smaller without her designer confidence. The judge did not care about her aesthetic. Identity theft. Fraud. Probation. Restitution. The house was seized. Daniel was held financially responsible as co-applicant. As I walked out of the courtroom, Daniel said quietly, You've ruined everything. I turned to him, heart cracked but spine straight. No, I saved myself. The silence after. Months passed without a word. Holidays were quiet. Painful, but peaceful. For the first time in decades, I did not bend myself into shapes to keep someone else comfortable. I joined a book club. I planted roses. I volunteered at a literacy center. And slowly, the ache inside me began to soften. Not because I forgot, but because I refused to let bitterness define the rest of my life. The letter of regret. Almost a year later, I received another envelope. Handwritten. From Daniel. I thought you would always protect me from consequences, he wrote. I mistook your love for permission. I read that sentence 3 times. He and Ava had separated. Financial pressure had cracked their marriage. He asked to meet. The beginning of something new. We met at a small cafe. He looked older. Humbled. I'm sorry, he said immediately. Not defensive. Not angry. Just sincere. I failed you, he whispered. For a moment, I saw my little boy again. Forgiveness is not immediate. It is gradual. But I chose not to let pride poison my remaining years. I forgive you, I said slowly, but trust will take time. He nodded. I understand. For the first time in a long while, I believed him. What 62 taught me. At 62, I learned that love without boundaries invites exploitation. That silence in the face of wrongdoing is not kindness, it is self-abandonment. And that protecting your dignity is not cruelty. It is courage. I am still Sara Whitmore. Still 62 years old. Still living in the modest home I worked my whole life to keep. But now I live there with something far more valuable than property. Self-respect. The moral. Love should never cost you your identity. Boundaries are not betrayals. Accountability is not revenge. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your children and for yourself is refuse to shield them from the consequences of their choices. Because when you choose dignity, you teach others how to treat you. And I finally learned to choose myself,